You are being recorded. All right, so are you okay with us sharing this recording of your story publicly?
I am. Please spread it around, pour it out there.
Thank you. Can you or anyone that you mentioned in your story have any legal problems due to you telling your story publicly?
No.
Okay, sweet. The time is yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I am humbled and honored to be here. My name is Jennifer. I am an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm a sex addict. I'm a shopaholic. I am a food addict. I'm addicted to the sun. I'm addicted to whatever makes me feel good. I think the only thing that I haven't covered is gambling. And that's just because I'm too busy at the bar drinking. So I get blacked out before you can explain blackjack to me. So I black out before I can play blackjack. We'll start with just like my earliest memories, like kindergarten. I decided I didn't like school. I decided that right away, it was really friggin' boring because I grew up on a street with these two girls and I happen to know where they are today. And they're like genius IQs. And these were my best friends. And these are the girls that I went to school with. And so I compared myself to them. All right. So obviously I was just normal and these are geniuses and I couldn't compete. And this was kindergarten. So I'm like, F this, I don't like school. And right away, I just decided that I wanted to rebel. And I think out of the box, my mantra was just rebellion. And I grew up in an upper middle class Jewish community where most people didn't rebel. So we'll just start with that. Went to school, tried to, conform, didn't really work. My dad was always working. He was a workaholic as well. Later to find he was also an alcoholic, but not the kind of alcoholic that would be like, where are the kids? And come home and, slap us around. We went on beautiful vacations. My mother just gave me everything I wanted. I was very spoiled. There was no discipline. Our house was friggin' crazy. It was insane. There was the white picket fence, but inside, my brother and I were in the basement listening to rock and roll. Rock and roll was a big part of my upbringing. And my father was working. He was traveling a lot. My mother was just oblivious, God knows what. And there was just no discipline. All of us just did what we wanted to do. I remember my across the street neighbor used to be like, I don't understand how, like, when the family is going out to dinner, Jennifer, which is me, she's in the front seat and her mom is in the back. Cause like I ruled the household, like I ruled my family, which isn't, really normal. So I'm just going to kind of skip around here. And I was an alcoholic from the first time I picked up a drink. I remember, let's go to the dentist. Okay. So I had to go to the dentist, and I remember going to the dentist in 8th grade and the dentist giving me laughing gas and feeling at that moment, the ease and comfort that we feel and saying, fuck yeah, I'm going to find whatever this is. If this is like what drinking feels like or what drugs feel like, I'm going to find it because this is it. Because it took me away from whatever it was that didn't make me feel like the rest of the people or the rest of the people that I grew up with, or like those kids in kindergarten that were smarter than me, or the girl that sat next to me in class that had prettier hair or whatever. Everybody was prettier. Everybody had it better than me. Everybody, if you're an addict, you just have that thing. If you're an alcoholic, we have that hole, we have that something. And when I went to the dentist, it was filled with what we know now, later is the, what's it? The nitrox, what's it called? Yeah, I don't remember what it's called. I can't think of it right now. All I know is that I did a lot more of it later on in life at Grateful Dead concerts with the hippie crack the laughing balloons. So anyway, just never, ever was at ease with me. Hated school. Found out at a very early age that there was a hotel right down the block from me. And every time there was a band that would come through town, they would stay at that hotel. And we would see the tour buses there. And so my friends and I would ride our bicycles there. And we basically grew up in that hotel. From probably age 11, we would cut class and wait there. And when the bands would come in town, before we were like developed, when we were just little, we would wait there and, can we get your autograph? And they would ignore us and laugh and whatever. And then as we got older, we'd get more attention. Then we'd hang out in the bars, and then we'd meet the bands. Then we'd hang out in the tour buses. And then high school was all about hanging out, chasing rock bands, going to concerts, and getting drunk. And already 16 years old, you already got a teenage alcoholic smoking weed. When I was at that hotel, I fell in love with the 21-year-old maitre d' at the bar, who, you know, was the bad boy into cocaine. So now you got a 17-year-old Jewish girl in the suburbs that's chasing rock stars with her boyfriend that's the cocaine addict. Just a typical story, you know, typical story. So teenage drug addict. At that point, did I get in trouble? Yes. Was it still manageable? Yes. Did I know that I have a problem? Yes. I remember having a diary entry in 1986, and it said, I was 16, and it said, I know that I'm an alcoholic because, and the girl's name was Jamie Levine. Jamie Levine left my house, and everybody left the house, and they all went home, and it's 4 a.m, and I'm still drinking by myself in my bedroom, you know? And the thing is, because of my lack of discipline, you know, I can't blame my parents, God bless their hearts, but I still would have been an alcoholic. But they kind of made it easy for me, just because dad was always working, doing his own thing. My mother was clueless. My mother knew that I was unhappy. So her solution to everything was, oh, just let her do it. You know, she's just trying to, let's go shopping. Let's think, let her drink, let her, you know, whatever. Yeah. There was just no discipline. So it turns out by the time it was my senior year, all these, you know, kids I went to high school with, they're all going to Ivy League colleges, and I'm going to rehab. So that was my first rehab. I'm jumping around, but the last rehab I went to, we tried to count how many I went to. We were up to like 40. So I've been in and out of treatment centers my whole life. So the first one was after my senior year of high school, already an alcoholic, doing drugs, crazy. And I was the one that said that I knew I had the problem. I think it was just because I'd rather go to rehab and be with a bunch of addicts that were like me than have to go to college. I did not want to go to college. I knew that I would fit in more in rehab. And so they sent me, I grew up in Cleveland, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, and that's where I grew up. They sent me to Minneapolis, home of treatment centers. And I went there, stayed sober for, I mean, I'm jumping around so much, but I stayed sober for, I don't know, a year maybe, decided to move out there, got an internship, and decided that I was going to get an internship at a radio station because I wanted to figure out how I could meet, you know, rock stars and get paid for it. And so that's what I did. And one of my connections from my teenage years, one of the roadies that I met got me a job. And I don't want to focus too much on this, but I ended up just falling into this like ridiculous career in radio. And I moved back to my hometown in the 90s, Cleveland, in the 90s, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, when all the Seattle hype was happening, and the 80s were out, and the 80s bands were out, and I was helping break Pearl Jam and all these bands, and I'm young, and party scene, the heroin, the drugs, and I was right in there, and I was perfect for it. And let me tell you something, the music industry loved me. They're like, oh my God, she's perfect. You know, it was like cool to be a drug addict. It was accepted. It was accepted in my industry. And all these bitches that I went to school with, you know, it was like, ha ha, look at me now, you know? So finally it was a false ego. It was the false ego, because I thought finally that I was up there with them because I had the radio job, I had the money, I had the fame, I had that. Meanwhile, I'm dying inside, dying of drugs. It's killing me. And even though everything looked so great on the outside, I was dying of a drug addict in the inside still. I mean, I knew something was wrong. I didn't enjoy any of that. I didn't get to enjoy it. I didn't have any feeling of self-worth or self-esteem. I just felt dead. So my company came to me, and they said, we think you need to go to a spa, Jennifer. We think you need, this was 5 years into that job, WMMS Cleveland, biggest rock station in the country. We think that you need to dry out. And they wanted me to go to a spa. And at that point I was like, no, you guys, that's really cute, but I need some time away. I need to go to rehab. So like, okay, you can go to, I don't remember, they were going to send me like, I don't know, Father Martin, Chalk Talk guy, like really boring. If you're an old school addict, Chalk Talk guy, horrible. Or we're going to send you to Florida. We know a place in Florida right on the beach, and, we'll send you there. So of course I chose Florida. And I came down here and I stayed sober for a year. I met a bunch of great people. Then I went to a sober living. Then I got another radio job and was high before you know it. Got introduced to crack. And from there, it's just, I could just go for 15 years. It was just like crack, sober, rehab, crack, sober, drinking, crack, sober, career, down, up, down, marriage, got married, had a kid, got sober, smoking crack. So I went from fame to behind the dumpster with the homeless people, smoking crack. And that's where I wanted to be. My father died, my mother, my beloved mother, who I love so much. She moved down here and I broke her heart, I was living with my ex-husband, and who's my ex now. And when I met him on the druggy buggy, I was in treatment and I was like, I want him, sex addiction right there. I want that guy. I ended up 2 days sober, marrying him. And we had a son together who's now 16, and he's in the other room right now. And he's a great kid, but he's definitely a result of active addiction, two addicts getting together and being raised in active addiction, and two people with mental illness, and just, we weren't ready. And, he has a lot of issues, this kid. He's a good kid, but he's got a lot of issues. And so that's when they say, wait till you have a year. I should have waited till I had 10 years. I still shouldn't be dating, So, my story is like everybody else's story. It doesn't matter. It's just, I felt like shit in the inside. I covered it up by using anything I could to make myself feel better. And when I wasn't using drugs, I was using men. I was using shopping. I was using people. I was using exercise. I was using whatever it took. In between treatments, when I'd stay sober for 9 months, I would go to meetings, but I wouldn't. I'd go to AA, but I wouldn't work the program. I'd go to AA, but I'd look and see who the cutest guy was, and then go out with the cutest guy, and then get into a relationship. And then I'd use, and then I'd say, what, I'm going back to AA. I'm staying away from those AA guys. They're the worst. So then I'd get addicted to online dating, and I would date, then that would be a thing. And so, the sex addiction, which isn't about the sex, it's about making me feel better inside. Sex addiction, sex and love addiction is not always about, the sexual part of it. It's about just anything that to make us not have to feel, or to make us feel better about ourselves, or just to get us away from ourselves. Just, addicts, we're interesting people, and for so many years I was going to AA and I just didn't get it. I didn't even get into the arrests and all the drug possession charges that I had, because there were many. The DUI started at such an early age, and, all my friends that died, and none of that does shit. We could get DUIs, we could get arrested, we could watch our friends die, we could OD, we could do it all. And that's not going to get us clean. I know for me, what it took was an emotional bottom. I mean, I had every kind of bottom. I lost my career. I got arrested, and my friggin' mugshot was plastered all over the news. Jennifer Wild gets arrested, cocaine. And that was my radio name. And it was really humiliating. And you would think that would kind of, I got high after that. And it was really probably one of the lowest moments of my life when that mugshot was out there and everybody saw that. And my son saw that too. My son saw me on the ground dead. I OD'd and he saw me on the ground. One day I just surrendered, and I was just like, I had enough. And I don't know if that's what a spiritual awakening is or not, but it was like, it's time for me to grow the fuck up. It's time for me to grow up. And I was done. And I was just done. And I went to a meeting and I did it through AA again. I did it through AA at first, I went to AA, and that's where I got my support. And I cried and I raised my hand and I said, you know what, this time I need to like look at the steps, and I really need to work the steps. And I really had to take a look at that first step. I don't think I ever did that first step. I admitted that I was an alcoholic, but it was like, I could admit it, but I didn't really care. It was like, okay, I'll admit I'm an alcoholic, but deep down inside, I didn't accept the powerlessness of it. I couldn't get into my brain that if I take anything, I'm gone. The last time I used, I've been to the top of the line treatment centers in Malibu, California, to the bottom of the barrel, government funded, one step above prison. I was sentenced to 6 months in a government funded treatment center that was the worst. So like bugs, sleeping on a plastic mattress. I've been both. So I was in a Malibu treatment center, and they were all using Kratom in this treatment center. I don't know if you know what Kratom, it's like Kava, like the Kava bars. And they said they were sober. So I'm in Malibu in treatment, addicted to Kratom that I'm getting in the vape store. Okay. I had to detox off the freaking Kratom. I come home, get off the Kratom, get a year sober, and it's New Year's. And this is how cutting, baffling, and powerful this disease is. And I'm taking my last high. It's around New Year's, and I'm like, I have a year. You know what? Everyone in AA, they're all using this Kratom. I'm at the vape store. I'm getting my vape juice. I'm like, yo, there's the Kratom. I can just take a little bit of Kratom and I'll be okay. Because I didn't do the first step yet. I didn't accept the fact that I'm powerless over fucking alcohol and any substance, any mood altering substance I cannot use that's going to make me change the way that I am, and that I'm not with God. Okay. So I said, I can take the Kratom. It's legal. I took Kratom. Before you know it, 3 hours later, I'm behind the dumpster smoking freaking crack, gone on a 3-day bender. Next thing you know, the paramedics are in my house, and I'm being resuscitated because I OD'd on fentanyl. And it started with one Kratom at a vape store. And that was the last time I got high. And that's when I said to myself, I surrender. I am powerless. And it all comes down to surrendering and the fact that I'm powerless. And that if I don't get right with God and accept my God and know that the only thing that's going to get me right, there's no human power. And I know that I'm sounding like a fucking walking big book, but until I got into the big book, I was never able to do it. And you see these things back here. Singing bowls, meditation, all that helped me get to my God. Okay. Because I was brought up Jewish, and Jewish is in Hebrew, and it's like Shema Israel. Like none of that ever made any sense to me. Like I didn't get religion at all. I was really confused. Like, okay, so like Jesus, I'm not supposed to believe in that. And I don't understand Hebrew. I was never bat mitzvah. Like religion is really weird. I don't get it. So I had to find something that I related to. And I always loved crystals. Okay. And I'm really sensitive to energy, and I love Reiki, and all of that made sense to me. And it really soothed me, and it made me feel good. And I felt connected, and I felt that fullness that I was looking for. I felt filled up. And so that helped me connect to God. And then every time I felt like I wanted to use it again, I was like, but you know what? I'm going to be turning my back on God. And then my life started getting better, and things started happening. And maybe not materialistically so much. I didn't get my friggin' radio career back, because that fell in the toilet. And we'll talk about that in the next podcast I'm invited back to. But just things happen. Like, I got my self-esteem back. I started feeling better about myself. I got really into working out. I got really into meditation. I became a Reiki healer. I started helping other people, and that started making me feel better. My son started getting better. I got divorced. I got out of this marriage I couldn't get out of. And then I never thought my ex-husband and I would ever be able to speak 2 words to each other. We're best friends today. I got a job in treatment helping other people. And I actually was asked to work in radio again. Problem is, they don't pay anything, and they want me to leave Florida. I ain't leaving Florida. I love it here. I get to go to the beach and watch the sunrise. I get to wake up in the morning and feel good and refreshed. And know what I did last night? I get to talk to my mother, who's no longer with us. She died in the middle of one of my things, but I made peace with that. And we're connected spiritually. And I know that if I was using, I would not be connected to her spiritually. I wouldn't get to. My brother and I had no relationship. We have a relationship today. I get to say I'm going to be somewhere, and I'm there. The gifts just keep on coming. Do I still get depressed? Yes. Do I have to work at it every day? Yes. Is it a daily reprieve? Yes. By no means is life perfect. But every single day, I am so grateful, and I have to pinch myself. All those times that I was in rehab, I have to pinch myself when I go to work and I'm on the other side. I'm on the other side. I see that girl that is in so much pain, and she's sitting there, and she's just fresh in rehab out of detox. And I could be like, listen, girl, trust me. If I could do it, you can do it. I could look at her in the eye, and she could look at me in the eye, and she could believe me. And she knows I'm not kidding. She knows I'm not fucking with her. You know, I have a real story. It's true. I did it, and she could do it. And there is nothing that can replace that feeling of helping somebody else. And you've got to be able to do it first and walk the walk before you can help somebody else. And there is no hit of crack that can give you that feeling. I could be an example to that little boy over there and show him that mommy doesn't have to do that anymore. So thank you so much for having me on. I would plug my podcast, but it's really not up and running yet. So I'm going to let you plug it once it gets going. I don't really have to whore it out yet. I know it's going to kick ass. But thank you for having me.
And then,
so you guys,
if you want to find me,
you can go to Sober Exposure _podcast. And I'm going to have a really, really cool podcast with some great guests. And we're going to talk about some really interesting subject matters. And just go to my Instagram, and it'll give you all the information you need to know. So thank you again. Thank you.